Well, hello, friends, and welcome to today's live level up conversation. It is wonderful to be here with you. Happy Thursday, happy 2026, of course. But let's dive right in.
And now, get ready. I present to you Level Up with Winnie Sun. Market Update. Award-winning financial pro. Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, friends. It is wonderful to be back with you. I see Sadiq joining us on YouTube Live already. Hope that you are having a great week, a great year so far. For those of you who are brand new to the show, I'm Winnie Sun, your host, an award winning financial pro, Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member. And yes, we are streaming here live on a whole bunch of different social media platforms. So jump in, say hello, introduce yourself. It's great to be here with you. Now, I wish I could tell you it's good news across the board because we're going to tee it off and talk about where the market is. It's about to close in just a couple of minutes here, but unfortunately, it's red all across the board. Dow currently down 634 points. Nasdaq is down 429 points. S&P 500 also negative, down 98 points. So not the best news. And some of the news that are coming out, in case you didn't know, of course, there's so much news. And then these days, it's not just about financial news, but a lot of what's happening here in the United States politically is more and more so impacting financial news. Now, you could definitely say that's been the case for many, many years. This is definitely not something new, but to the volume of impact, that's definitely new. Now, something that I want to talk to you about, of course, is recent news that came out of CNBC. And I've seen this information on CNN and New York Times and other Wall Street Journal as well about the U.S. job market. Now, many of you have heard the potential and future impact of artificial intelligence and sort of the concerns of what it'll have on the job market going forward. But if you've been following financial news, and here that's what we do know that there's been a lot of layoffs, even in the beginning stages of 2026. I mean, we're only in February, but so many big companies have been doing massive layoffs. And traditionally, you're seeing a lot of those massive layoffs typically in the second half of the year, but now it's coming just as strong in the beginning of the year. Here in the United States, though, job growth has continued to fall as well. So it's not just layoffs, but also new hires. And in fact, only 22,000 private sector jobs were added last month, which falls way short of the 45,000 that was expected and even lower than December's revised 37,000. So the areas where there was some hope and some bright lights were basically in health and the education services, which really saved a month. With 74,000 jobs were added there. Without them, actually, job growth would have been negative completely. Because as you know, the job market remains very much in sluggish territory with companies hiring a lot less and they're hiring less and they're definitely firing more, continuing on this trend that we've been seeing over the past 3 years. Now, business services lost 57,000 jobs, while manufacturing and services and large employers also saw declines. And I want to make a note on that. Manufacturing has been losing jobs as well, when we know that here in the United States, we're really actually trying to bring more manufacturing jobs to the states rather than losing them. Now, although there were some changes in construction, they were sort of modest as well. Construction actually added about 9,000 jobs. Finance, the world that I'm in, added about 14,000. But in hospitality, if you go travel, hotels and whatnot, added about 4,000. Now, mostly of those from mid-sized companies. Now, ADP's chief economist is saying that employers are not only cautious, but with economic uncertainty, Now, people are just not comfortable hiring, and not to mention all that's been coming out in other parts of the world, and of course, political news as well. That's also all areas that are not only making you as the individual and investor nervous, but it's also making companies nervous about what sort of changes they want to make to their workforce. And we do know that now technology, AI, is able to do and streamline so that instead of maybe three employees, maybe one employee or two employees can do the same job as three employees and maybe just a portion of the time, right? Now, wages here in the United States were mostly flat with just a 4.5% increase for those staying in the same job. Really, that does, offer some relief, but probably not enough considering inflation pressures as well. So that being said, let's segue to another story. Now, if you're feeling, let's say, not that your money isn't going as far, and maybe perhaps you don't feel like you're saving as much, well, there is somebody though here in the United States where that's not the case. You may have heard of the name Elon Musk. Well, Elon is now just actually getting even more wealthy because Elon Musk's net worth now soars to $852 billion, billion with a B, after SpaceX acquired XAI. Now, this is being reported by Forbes, Matt Jarrett there, talking about how Elon is now worth just a massive amount of money. Not that he wasn't worth a lot even before this transition, but he, of course, makes him once again the richest person in the world, but now also makes him the richest person in history after SpaceX bought his AI company, XAI. Well, I guess that was kind of smooth when you own two companies. The deal values the new SpaceX XAI combo at 1.25 trillion dollars, which increases, of course, his personal wealth by $84 billion overnight. How would you feel about that? Like, can you imagine having that much money come into your account overnight? I If that happened to me, I would absolutely know it wasn't true. But that being said, it's still nice to dream, right? Now we do know that Elon, of course, owns 43% of the merged company, which makes his portion worth about $542 billion, making SpaceX, well, his largest asset. Now, he also owns a 12% stake in Tesla, which is valued about $178 billion, and stock options worth about, $124 billion, with potential, of course, more if Tesla hits certain bogeys of growth. And so this is now Elon's second major merger in a year. Last time he merged XAI with X, which many of you know as Twitter, or used to be called Twitter, which raises questions about sort of self set valuations. But Elon has hit four wealth milestones now in just 4 months, crossing the $500 billion mark in October, $600 billion in December, and $700 billion just a few days later. So, what's going to be next? I mean, yeah, I see Sadiq saying dream, 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 dream. Yes, indeed, dream, 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 dream. I don't know. It's like that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I know there's a lot of people in the world, especially here in the United States, who are concerned about inflation and the price of groceries and whether or not they're going to be able to have work to be able to sustain and take care of their own households to make sure they can pay for basic necessities like shelter and food and medical care and things like that. I mean, hopefully, that's something that he would be able to share and make the world a little bit better. But nonetheless, Elon now leads by a massive $578 billion over the second richest person, which is Google's Larry Page. Yes, indeed. Well, let me just say, maybe with a little planning, you can, think about doing more gifting. That would be really great. But anyhow, let's continue on because I want to talk about another portion in the world of AI. And that is, if you didn't know already, a $50 billion partnership, not another big amount of money. This is being reported by CNBC, talking about how Amazon is now currently in discussion with OpenAI to come together and bring a very unique partnership. Amazon will soon use OpenAI's models like ChatGPT, which many of you are familiar with, to power Alexa and other tools as part of a sort of potential $50 billion investment. These numbers, like, people talk about billions the way you and I probably talk about dollars. It's incredible. Now, this could make Alexa, they say, smarter and even more conversational, more relatable, and helping sort of compete with other AI assistants like Google Gemini and Siri. Because right now, many complex Alexa Plus questions are actually being handled by another AI tool, Anthropic's Claude, which is not Amazon's own AI. The partnership could also mean that OpenAI starts using Amazon's AI chips, maybe instead of what Nvidia, and computing power, creating sort of a two-way benefit. Now, of course, those are all may, could things. None of this is for sure, but Amazon already uses sort of a mix of 70 plus AI models, including its own Nova models and others that they say are currently hosted via their own Bedrock platform. But beyond Alexa, Amazon also wants to boost its AI shopping assistant, Rufus. That's a cute name, showing the broader push to sort of bake AI into all of its services. This is probably not a surprise to you. I think any large company who has the resources and sort of can see and plan for the future is planning to integrate more and more AI into their operations and of course into different tools and really trying to transform their own businesses to be ready for more AI advances and more chip technology and whatnot. But OpenAI is also said to be working with Apple and Google, but that they see Amazon sort of as a better fit for their sort of their enterprise ambitions. Now, the deal, of course, will deepen the tech rivalry between Amazon, Google, Apple, and OpenAI, which we know they are all racing to dominate AI platforms and devices. And let's not forget Meta as well, right? And I'm sure there's so many other companies that maybe are making headlines that, of course, are also very much looking to invest time and energy into their own AI platforms as well. Now, I want to segue a little bit because, well, we're February right now, which means very quickly here we're going to be deep in tax season. Now, if you didn't know already and you're thinking, oh, Winnie, you just reminded me on something because I was just thinking like it's a new year and I was just getting, working on my financial goals and maybe my New Year's resolutions. And now you're talking to me about tax season. Yep. In fact, I am. For many of you who have accountants like myself, my accountant already sent over a tax questionnaire. I need to uh, fill it out and send it back. But yes, we are totally deep in tax season. So let's talk about some of the things that should be on your radar. Now, this is a article that was published this week by Morningstar, talking about 3 strategies to maximize retirement spending. Yes, we said spending, not savings. Now, this is really important because as we think about retirement, right now, I know many of you are too young to be retired and maybe it's still out on the horizon, but I think the best time to think about your retirement spending is when you don't need to make that spending yet. So the earlier you can start, the more powerful it will be for you. Now, what you want to do, of course, is pick a strategy that matches what you value most because Morningstar is saying that every withdrawal plan comes with sort of trade-offs, right? If you focus on something for simplicity, that's one way to do it, maybe. But then perhaps if you're focused too much on simplicity, then you could be leaving money behind. But if your goal is to sort of spend more while you're alive, then you have to choose. Well, do I want to spend now and like live for today and have perhaps less for the future? Or do I want to spend less now, but have more in the future and have more, options in the future. Now, that's one way to do it. And there's, of course, the way of like the probability based guardrails for sort of that maximum spending. They say that this is a flexible method that adjusts every single year based on the market conditions and, of course, how your portfolio is doing. You actually might get to spend more. But if it dips, spending, might have to be trimmed. You might have to save a little bit more. This could be dynamic, but it also requires active monitoring, which I really like this sort of flexible method. I think this is a great opportunity if you're going to go this direction, is to work with a financial advisor. So you can really keep track every year to make sure that you're on track for that. Now, the other option that they discussed in this article that I think is important for you to consider too, which is actually one that's really popular. I've been seeing more so for retirees, and that's sort of the RMD strategy, which sort of offers a built in safety net based on IRS rules. The required minimum distribution, or RMD for short, method sort of adjusts withdrawals to life expectancy. Now, it won't let you sort of run out of money completely, but it can also create big ups and downs in your yearly income. So I don't like that. I feel like instead of hiring the IRS sort of determine how much money you're going to be able to spend each year, I think it's best that you start in planning early and you put together a plan of this is how much I think I'm going to need. This is what my buffer will be. This is what I can save each year. And perhaps on years that I get a bonus or I spend a little bit less, I can save a little bit more. I like to have that sort of proactive planning. And then there's another method that they talk about, which is sort of guardrails method, where it gives you sort of the freedom within limits. So you start by a fixed percentage, like let's say like 5.2%. And then so you sort of adjust based on how your investments are doing. It sort of protects you from overspending, but it still lets you to increase spending in good years. I actually don't like that idea either because I think if you are earning a little bit more on a particular year, yes, you could spend it. But I would say that that's a great opportunity for you to take at least a portion of that and reinvest it for your future retirement as well. So these sort of methods really allow for like, you know, higher sort of early retirement planning of how much you're going to be spending in the future. But each approach which really kind of lets you have some customization and some decision making that you want to do earlier rather than later. So that came from Morningstar. If you want to read more, you can definitely just Google Morningstar and you can see that. But I want to put it on your radar because it's kind of talking about something a little different that we don't talk about every day, which is the topic of retirement spending versus savings. And then if you put together a plan and you're much younger than retirement planning, this is the best time to do it, especially since we're talking about tax season. Now, let's kind of continue the bridge on the topic of tax season. And that is sort of some of the changes are coming in for 2026 that I think that you want to hear about. Okay, so this is being reported by Kiplinger. So if you want to see the article on that, I would highly recommend checking out that from them. So Kiplinger has some major changes they said that are changing for 2026 that should be on your radar. Now, of course, for the 2026 tax season, we're really talking about filing for 2025, right? Because right now we're in tax season for last year. Now, so this is the first year under President Trump's new 2025 tax law, which he called the Big Beautiful Bill. Now, one thing that you should know about is the standard deduction. I know many of you file taxes with standard deductions just to make it simple. Now, standard deductions are higher, 15,570 if you're single, and 31,500 if you're filing as a couple, which really helps many of us sort of reduce taxable income without having to itemize our deductions. Now, speaking of deductions, the SALT deduction cap also jumped from 10,000 to 40,000, which, is only for a few years, but for those of you who own your own home in high income or high tax states such as New York or California here, that could be good news for you. Now, the other thing that's gone up for those of you who have children, well, the child tax credit is now $2,200 per child, up from $1,700, which is refundable for lower income families. So you just want to check your eligibility to see if you qualify, and you can take advantage of that. But for those of you who maybe have older family members, adults who are over 65 years old, well, you get a new $6,000 senior bonus deduction, phasing out at sort of higher income levels again on this one as well. And let's talk about car. The new above the line deductions include car loan interest for sort of qualified US assembled cars. That's key. So, I guess they have to be assembled, but maybe they don't have to be made here. So that includes, of course, so the above the line deductions not only include your car loan interest, but also if you're a server, if you have tips, and even overtime pay. So you'll want to file those on Schedule 1A. And of course, that's on your IRS tax form. But don't forget, if you feel like, well, I know I need an accountant, Winnie, but I just feel like my taxes are simple. I don't want to spend too much money. What are some options that I have? And here's the good news. The IRS has introduced, of course, and is reminding us that they have something called IRS Direct File. So that, of course, is no longer here. But now you can go to a new IRS free file called VITA or TCE programs or private software as well. So that way you can file your taxes, not have to pay for too much to have your taxes filed, because you definitely need to file. But that could be something to look in if your taxes are pretty simple and straightforward, that you could utilize that. Now, some people, of course, aren't sure. There's always programs like TurboTax. You could find an accountant like myself. I'm a business owner, so an accountant, a good tax accountant, is very, very important. But those of you who maybe, have just a side gig, maybe you just sell stuff on eBay or, on Facebook Marketplace, but it's not huge money. Here's some good news as well. For those of you who are just sort of casual sellers, you're not like doing a ton of sales online or in person. Well, the 1099K reporting now has also improved. That means it used to be a $600. If you sold $600, well, then you would need to, file the 1099K. But now it's back to $20,000 and 200 transactions. So for many of you who just sell a little bit now and then you don't need to worry about that. But again, always consult with your tax professional before making that decision. Now, small business owners can now also fully expense equipment again. So that's bonus depreciation. Again, if you don't know what that is, talk to your tax professional. And if it was placed in service, of course, after January 19th of 2025, that could qualify. So what that means basically for you is, I don't want you to copy just last year's return. Know that these changes are big and you could benefit from some of them. So definitely do your research, read that. And if you feel like you can't file your own taxes, do find a professional that can help you. There's so many great accountants and CPAs and out there that you think you just have to go out and find a relationship that is trustworthy, that's experienced, and someone that you enjoy working with. I would say that I absolutely love working with my accountant. I have worked with him and his team for many, many years. And I do feel like it's been very beneficial to the way that we conduct business. And with that, let's segue to something else. And this is something that's sort of been in the news a lot. I've talked about it in the news quite a bit. You may have seen me quoted in several publications as well as national TV shows on this. But this is the topic of the Trump accounts. Now, if you don't know the Trump accounts, you're in luck, because I'm going to update you on that. So the Trump accounts, what they are, what they do, let me just say that the Trump account is sort of a new child-focused savings tool. So those of you who don't have kids, this may not be applicable for you, but it was created under the 2025 Working Families Tax Cut Law, which offers tax-deferred growth and a way for you to put away money for your child. Now, if you're jumping for joy and thinking this is the best thing ever, I would caution you that it may or may not, depending on the age of your child and your goals. So, for example, if you have a newborn at home, born between 2025 and going forward until 2028, when the Olympics start coming back, well, for this age group, it's a no-brainer. You will receive, if you open one of these accounts, $1,000 of what they call government seed deposit, which I call just free money. Okay. So if your child is born between the years of 2025 and 2028, you got to open the account to get your $1,000 of free money. You just want to make sure to open the account before they turn age 18. But I highly recommend starting early because that way the money could continue to grow and have some, compounded interest in there. Now, you can also contribute up to $5,000 per year for anybody, uh, by anyone, whether it be parents, grandparents, and even employers can chip in. But the key thing is you can't take withdrawals until age 18, and the money is going to be taxed like a traditional IRA when withdrawal. So that means it's not going to be tax free like a 529 or Roth IRA. It's not going to be federal tax free. Roth IRA would be state and federal tax free if you hold the account until 59 and a half. Now, investments, of course, are capped to low-cost index funds like the S&P 500, for example, with less fees, limited to 0.10%. Now, we like that for sure. But this is the thing that I think makes me pause about having everybody do this. Now, of course, if you have a child, born between 25 and 2025 and 2028, then yeah, no brainer, open the account, get the seed money. But if your child is older, right? Born before 2025, this is a big maybe. Now, college financial aid impact is still unclear. We don't know yet what that means. Once we know that, I'll be able to tell you more definitively how I feel about this. But currently, if it could be treated like a student asset for your child, this could actually reduce the FAFSA or financial aid eligibility for your child. So compared to like 529s and custodial Roth IRAs, well, the Trump account has sort of stricter withdrawal rules as well, and the unknown aid consequences with financial aid, that makes this sort of a maybe. I like the concept of saving for long-term goals. I love that. But if you think that your child might qualify for financial aid, I would just say let's just wait to get more clarity of whether this account will need to be put on the FAFSA form when your child applies for college, for financial aid, and for scholarships and all that. But I do think this is best suited for sort of long term growth, not short term goals or education only savings. So if you're welcoming a baby very soon, this is sort of your rare chance to get $1,000 invested early, which could compound and be very powerful by adulthood. I think this is a great decision if you have a little one at home, or between 2025 and 2028. But if college aid is a sort of a big goal, then you might want to pair this account with a 529 plan, or just most importantly, wait for FAFSA guidance before committing. With that, of course, there's gonna be more information. Definitely check out um, online. There's a lot of good information out there, and one website is, of course, the trumpaccounts.gov, and the IRS has some great information on this as well. Now, the market has closed, and unfortunately, it did close in the negative. Dow closed down 592 points. Nasdaq closed down 363 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 84 points. So thank you so much, my friends, for being a part of today's Level Up Live. It's wonderful to be back with you. Do me a favor, hit that like, subscribe, and tell all your friends and neighbors and colleagues. And like, did you subscribe? You should subscribe. Yeah, it's great. Good content, and we couldn't do the show without you. To catch full past episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun, definitely check out Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, Roku, and NASDAQ. And when sharing an episode online, thank you so much for so many of you for tagging at Winnie Sun, so I can see who does that, and it really just want to give you a big shout out appreciation as well. Thank you so much, Sadiq, Joshua, and everybody else who's been doing that lately. With that, I'll see you again very soon. Take care, be well, talk soon. Bye bye now.